Disrespect never starts loud. It starts when someone senses you won't respond correctly. The moment you explain, react, or defend, you confirm their instinct. Machiavelli understood this power is not taken by force, but by timing. Miss this, and you train people how to treat you. By the end of this, your presence will change before you speak. You'll stop leaking reactions, stop signaling weakness, and start controlling the frame. Not louder, not colder, just unreadable and therefore untouchable. Disrespect is never random and it is almost never emotional. It is diagnostic. When someone crosses a line, interrupts you, undermines you subtly, or speaks down to you, they are not trying to hurt you, they are measuring you. They are observing how you regulate yourself under pressure, how quickly you give up your internal authority, and whether you are aware of the invisible hierarchy forming in the moment. Most people misunderstand this completely. They assume disrespect is an insult that must be countered. In reality, it is a question being asked without words. Do you know who you are right now? The unaware answer immediately. They defend, they explain, they correct the tone, they react emotionally or verbally. In doing so, they reveal uncertainty about their own position. That reaction becomes data. It tells the other person that pressure works, that emotional leverage exists, and that boundaries are negotiable. From that point forward, the dynamic is set. Disrespect doesn't escalate because the other person is aggressive. It escalates because it was rewarded with information. The aware do something different. They pause. Not because they are confused, but because they understand that silence is not absence, it is control. A pause forces the other person to sit inside their own action. It removes momentum. It introduces uncertainty. Humans are deeply uncomfortable with uncertainty, especially when they are testing power. When no immediate response comes, the test backfires. The person who initiated the disrespect begins to question their read of you. Did I misjudge? Did I overstep? Did I just expose myself? That pause subtly reverses the hierarchy. The one who can wait holds leverage. The one who needs resolution is already below. This is why calm individuals are often perceived as powerful even when they say very little. They do not rush to prove themselves because they are not negotiating their worth in real time. Their identity is settled internally, so external probes do not destabilize them. Most people never learn this because they are trained to equate self-respect with immediate defense. That is a mistake. Immediate defense is often fear masquerading as confidence. True self-respect does not need to announce itself. It observes first. It lets patterns form. It responds only when the response will land with weight. Machiavelli understood that power dynamics are decided in the first exchange, not the loudest one. If you pass the initial test correctly, most people never attempt a second. They sense that you are not an easy variable to manipulate. If you fail it, no amount of later assertiveness fully restores the original position. Disrespect then becomes useful. It reveals who is unconscious, who is impulsive, and who is testing for dominance without awareness. When you stop reacting emotionally to it, you stop being controlled by it. The test no longer exposes you, it exposes them. Explaining feels reasonable, even intelligent, but in power dynamics it is a hidden surrender. The moment you explain yourself, you silently agree that the other person has the right to judge your position. You place them above you as an evaluator, and yourself below as the one seeking understanding or approval. Most people never notice this shift because explanation is socially rewarded. It sounds mature, it sounds logical, but power does not operate on logic, it operates on structure. Disrespect often triggers explanation because it creates internal discomfort. When someone questions your competence, tone, or decision, the ego wants to repair the image immediately. So you clarify, you justify, you add context. In doing so, you confirm uncertainty about your own authority. You signal that your position is negotiable, that your value depends on being understood rather than assumed. This is why explanations rarely stop disrespect. They invite more of it. Those who understand power move differently. They do not rush to be understood because they are not dependent on interpretation. Their actions, boundaries, and consistency speak for them. When they are challenged, they do not explain unless it serves a strategic purpose. Silence, brevity, or redirection becomes the response. This forces the other person to confront an uncomfortable reality. There is no debate to win here. Machiavelli warned that leaders who over-justify appear weak, not transparent. Authority rests on inevitability, not persuasion. When you explain unnecessarily, you break that illusion of inevitability. You turn a statement into a discussion, a boundary into a suggestion. Once something becomes discussable, it becomes contestable. And once it is contestable, you have already lost leverage. Most people believe that if they explain well enough, they will be respected. In reality, respect comes first, explanation second, if at all. Those who are respected are questioned less, interrupted less, and doubted less, even when they say very little. Those who explain frequently train others to question them. This is not because the explanation is poor, but because the act itself invites scrutiny. Silence after a challenge does not mean compliance. It means refusal to enter a frame that diminishes you. A calm noted, a steady look, or a simple continuation of your action communicates far more authority than a detailed defense. It tells the other person that your position does not require validation. That message lands deeply, even if it is never spoken. This does not mean never explaining. It means explaining only from a position of choice, not pressure. When explanation is voluntary, it educates. When it is reactive, it submits. The unaware cannot feel the difference, but they respond to it instinctively. They push harder when they sense justification. They back off when they sense certainty. The shift happens internally first. When you no longer feel the urge to clarify yourself to people who have not earned that access, your external behavior changes naturally. Your words shorten. Your presence stabilizes. People stop pulling you into debates you never needed to enter. And slowly, without confrontation, the hierarchy resets in your favor. Emotion is the most common way people surrender control without realizing it. The moment your internal state becomes visible, you hand over leverage. Anger, irritation, defensiveness, sarcasm. All of it broadcasts information about what affects you and how easily. In power dynamics, this is not expression. It is exposure. Those who understand human behavior do not fear your emotions. They study them. Every emotional reaction teaches others where to press next. Most people believe showing emotion makes them appear strong or authentic. In reality, it makes them predictable. Predictability is the opposite of power. When someone knows what will provoke you, they gain influence over your decisions, your tone, and your timing. This is why emotional individuals are constantly pulled into conflicts they did not intend to fight. Their reactions become invitations. Calm dominance operates on a different frequency. It is not emotional suppression, and it is not detachment. It is regulation. You feel everything, but you reveal nothing that does not serve you. This restraint unsettles people who rely on emotional feedback to navigate interactions. When there is no visible reaction, they lose orientation. They cannot tell if they succeeded, failed, or misjudged you. That uncertainty weakens their position. Anger feels powerful because it creates internal energy, but externally it lowers status. Raised voices, sharp responses, visible frustration, these behaviors communicate loss of control even when the words themselves are strong. The unaware equate intensity with authority. The aware understand that authority is measured by how little intensity is required. The quieter the response, the heavier it lands. Emotional control also protects you from false urgency. Disrespect often tries to rush you into responding before you can think. It pressures you to act in the heat of the moment, where mistakes are most likely. When you remain calm, you slow the interaction down. You create space between stimulus and response. In that space, strategy becomes possible. Silence is often mistaken for weakness because most people use it when they have nothing to say. The aware use it when they have everything to gain. Silence after provocation denies the other person reinforcement. Without reinforcement, behavior collapses. People either escalate, exposing themselves, or retreat. Both outcomes reveal valuable information. Emotional control also shifts how others remember you. People may forget what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. A calm, unshaken presence leaves a psychological imprint. It suggests depth, stability, and self-possession. Over time, people approach you more carefully. They choose their words more precisely. They sense that impulsive behavior will not move you. This discipline is internal before it is external. You do not eliminate emotion, you stop letting it drive the interaction. When you are no longer governed by the need to react, you begin to govern the dynamic itself. And in power dynamics, the one who controls the tempo, the tone, and the visibility of emotion controls the outcome. Timing is the invisible architecture of power. What you say matters far less than when you say it. Most people destroy their position not because they are wrong, but because they are early. Immediate reactions feel decisive, but they rarely are. They satisfy the ego's need to regain balance, not the strategic need to maintain leverage. In power dynamics, speed is often a liability. Disrespect creates urgency by design. It provokes a response before you have time to assess intent, audience, and consequence. The unaware take the bait. They reply instantly, correcting, defending, or asserting themselves. In doing so, they freeze the interaction at its weakest point, a moment charged with emotion and incomplete information. The aware resist this pressure. They understand that delay is not avoidance, it is positioning. When you delay a response, you introduce asymmetry. The other person now waits. Waiting shifts power because it creates psychological tension. Humans are wired to seek closure. When closure is withheld, attention drifts toward the one controlling the timeline. The person who initiated the disrespect begins replaying the interaction internally, questioning their move, imagining outcomes. Meanwhile, you remain still. That stillness becomes dominant. Machiavelli favored patience because it allowed enemies to expose themselves without resistance. The same principle applies here. A delayed response invites overreach. If someone feels bold enough to disrespect you once, silence often tempts them to do it again, more clearly, more publicly, or more recklessly. That escalation removes ambiguity. It gives you cleaner data and stronger justification for your eventual move. Acting too early denies you this advantage. Timing also determines audience impact. A response delivered immediately is consumed emotionally. A response delivered later is interpreted deliberately. When people have had time to cool down, your words carry more authority. They sound less reactive, more calculated. Even if the message is the same, the timing changes how it is received and remembered. There is also power in choosing not to respond at all. Not every challenge deserves acknowledgement. Some are attempts to drag you into a lower frame. By ignoring them, you signal that the interaction never met your threshold of relevance. This is not passive. It is selective engagement. Power grows by refusing unnecessary battles. Delayed responses force you to confront your own impulses. If you cannot wait, it reveals internal dependence on validation or dominance. The discipline of waiting strengthens internal control. Over time, you become less reactive by default. People sense this before they test you. They hesitate, they adjust, they become more cautious. Timing is not about winning the moment, it is about shaping the pattern. One measured delay can reframe an entire relationship. It teaches others that access to your reactions is not immediate or guaranteed. That lesson changes behavior more reliably than any confrontation ever could. Confrontation is dramatic, but it is rarely effective long-term. Most people rely on single moments of intensity to establish respect, a sharp remark, a raised voice, a decisive stand. These moments feel powerful, but they fade quickly. Human behavior does not recalibrate based on one event. It recalibrates based on patterns. Respect is not enforced by how fiercely you react once, but by how consistently you remain unmoved. Inconsistent behavior confuses authority. If you sometimes tolerate disrespect and sometimes confront it, you teach others that your boundaries fluctuate. Fluctuating boundaries invite testing. People probe again and again, adjusting their behavior until they find the point where you break. This is why many feel chronically disrespected despite standing up for themselves repeatedly. They are responding episodically, not structurally. Consistency, on the other hand, removes ambiguity. When your reactions are predictable in their restraint, others adapt without needing to be corrected. Calm firmness, repeated over time, creates an environment where disrespect simply fails to land. People learn that certain behaviors lead nowhere. No emotional payoff, no engagement, no leverage. Behavior that produces no result eventually disappears. Most people mistake calm consistency for passivity. That is because they associate strength with visible force. In reality, force attracts resistance. Consistency attracts compliance. When someone knows exactly what behavior is acceptable around you, they adjust unconsciously. This adjustment is not driven by fear but by clarity. Clarity is more sustainable than intimidation. A single confrontation may silence someone temporarily, but it often creates resentment or a desire to regain control later. Consistent boundaries, however, do not feel personal. They feel structural. People do not argue with structures, they navigate them. This is why the most respected individuals rarely argue. They do not need to. Their behavior has already done the teaching. Consistency also protects you from emotional exhaustion. Constantly confronting disrespect drains energy and attention. When your standards are embedded in your daily behavior, enforcement becomes effortless. You no longer have to decide how to respond in each moment. The response is already built into who you are and how you move. Machiavelli understood that lasting power does not come from repeated displays of force, but from systems that make force unnecessary. Your demeanor becomes such a system. When people experience the same composed, grounded response every time, they stop expecting exceptions. They stop pushing. Not because they are afraid of you, but because there is nothing to gain. Over time, this consistency reshapes your reputation. People speak differently about you when you are not present. They warn others to be precise, respectful, and measured around you. Not because you are aggressive, but because you are unshakable. Respect earned this way is quiet, durable, and self-sustaining. Consistency is not about being rigid. It is about being reliable. When others cannot provoke emotional volatility or inconsistent reactions, they lose the incentive to test you. And without tests, disrespect has nowhere to grow. Distance is one of the most underestimated tools of power because it leaves no visible trace. There is no argument, no confrontation, no explanation to dissect. And yet it alters behavior more reliably than words ever could. Most people assume influence comes from engagement, from being present, responsive, and involved. In reality, influence often comes from controlled absence. When access is reduced, value becomes clearer. Disrespect thrives on proximity. It needs interaction, familiarity, and feedback to survive. When someone crosses a boundary and you continue to offer them the same access, your time, attention, energy, or emotional availability, you unintentionally reward the behavior. The message becomes simple: nothing was lost. Distance corrects this without conflict. It introduces consequence without spectacle. Removing access does not require announcement. In fact, announcing it weakens the effect. Quiet withdrawal is far more destabilizing because it forces the other person to interpret the shift themselves. Humans are deeply sensitive to changes in social access. When someone notices that responses slow, invitations stop, or familiarity cools, they begin searching for the reason. That internal search does more psychological work than any lecture ever could. Distance also protects your internal state. Continued exposure to disrespect keeps you reactive. It keeps the nervous system alert, the mind defensive, the ego engaged. Strategic distance gives you back clarity. From afar, patterns become visible. You see whether the behavior was situational or structural, accidental or habitual. This perspective allows you to decide your next move from strength, not irritation. Most people misuse confrontation because they believe clarity requires explanation. Distance creates clarity without negotiation. It redraws the boundary instead of debating it. When someone loses access, they learn where the line is by feeling it, not hearing it. This lesson is remembered longer because it is experienced, not intellectualized. Machiavelli understood that control over proximity is control over influence. Those who are always available are easy to devalue. Those who are selective become harder to dismiss. Distance signals self-respect without ever stating it. It says not everyone is entitled to me. That signal reshapes how people approach you in the future. There is also a filtering effect. Some people respond to distance with correction. They adjust their behavior, become more respectful, more measured. Others respond with resentment or escalation. Both reactions are useful. One earns continued access. The other disqualifies itself. Distance reveals intent faster than conversation ever will. This is not avoidance, it is discrimination. You are not running from disrespect, you are refusing to normalize it. Over time, people associate your presence with standards. They know that careless behavior results in reduced access, not drama. That understanding keeps interactions clean. Distance used correctly makes confrontation unnecessary. It teaches without humiliating, corrects without arguing, and protects your position without force. And because it is quiet, it is rarely challenged. People do not fight what they cannot grab. True power begins internally, long before it manifests externally. Most people are offended, hurt, or disrespected because they still negotiate their worth internally. They seek validation from others to confirm that they are correct, competent, or worthy of attention. That need for external approval makes them vulnerable. Disrespect works because it triggers an internal dialogue. Did I handle that correctly? Did I overact? Do they think less of me? Until that dialogue ends, external behavior will always be susceptible to manipulation. The highest form of control is self-possession. Once you stop requiring external validation, disrespect loses its power entirely. The insults, the snide remarks, the subtle undermining, none of these touch you because there is no internal fracture for them to exploit. The disrespectful individual may continue their behavior, but it becomes irrelevant. They are performing for an audience that no longer exists within you. You are no longer negotiating your worth with them. You are simply observing. This shift is not immediate. It requires cultivating awareness of your triggers and understanding the mechanics of influence. Most people feel compelled to respond to disrespect because they are unconsciously maintaining a narrative of themselves that depends on others' approval. The moment that dependency is recognized and relinquished, a new space opens. You are no longer reactive, you are reflective. You no longer defend, you evaluate. You no longer compete for attention, you command presence simply by existing within your own authority. When internal validation replaces external negotiation, your behavior changes in subtle but powerful ways. You no longer chase acknowledgement or correction. Your responses are measured, strategic, and deliberate. You do not overreact, underreact, or miscalculate. Others begin to sense this stability almost immediately. They recognize, often unconsciously, that their attempts to provoke, manipulate, or disrespect will yield no leverage. That realization shifts the hierarchy without confrontation. Disrespect, when viewed through this lens, becomes a tool rather than a threat. It reveals the unconscious habits of others, their impulsivity, their insecurity, their need to dominate. You can observe and interpret these signals without being drawn into their momentum. You gain insight while maintaining detachment. Over time, this internal mastery allows you to navigate social dynamics with precision and foresight. You are no longer merely reacting to behavior, you are influencing it subtly, shaping outcomes without overt effort. The final stage of this mastery is choice. When you no longer depend on validation, you decide who remains in your sphere and who does not. People either rise to your level, adjusting behavior to align with your standards, or they exit your presence because they cannot operate within your boundaries. Both outcomes are advantageous. One strengthens relationships, the other eliminates distractions. You are no longer at the mercy of anyone's perception. Your authority is intrinsic, and your boundaries are enforced naturally. This internal sovereignty is the ultimate shield. It makes external disrespect powerless and external respect automatic. Most people never reach this state because they are too busy negotiating, explaining, or proving themselves. Those who do achieve it are quietly untouchable. They command attention without demand, control outcomes without struggle, and influence behavior without force. The internal mastery of worth is the foundation upon which all external authority rests. It transforms how you are perceived, how you are treated, and ultimately how you navigate the world. Unlock the secrets of power, control, and human behavior with our deep dive into Machiavelli's methods to kill disrespect instantly. This video reveals the subtle, psychological strategies that most people will never understand, the quiet authority, strategic patience, and emotional mastery that separate the aware from the unaware. Learn how to command respect without aggression, stop reacting to provocations, and become unreadable in every interaction. By mastering these principles, you'll gain a presence that shifts dynamics before a word is spoken. This isn't just about self-defense, it's about internal sovereignty and long-term influence. Disclaimer: this video is intended for educational and psychological strategy purposes only. The techniques discussed are meant to enhance personal awareness, emotional control, and interpersonal influence. They are not instructions for manipulation, harassment, or harmful behavior. Viewer discretion is advised. Apply these principles responsibly, ethically, and with consideration of social and legal boundaries. Individual results may vary, and the creators are not liable for misuse of information. If you value gaining quiet authority, strategic insight, and control over interactions, like this video and subscribe to the channel. New content on human behavior, power psychology, and elite mindset strategies is uploaded regularly to help you level up your presence, influence, and personal mastery.